He was just like any other man walking down the street. People passed by him every day without giving him a second glance. He worked a regular job, earned just enough to live, and spent his evenings quietly at home. To everyone around him, there was nothing extraordinary about his life. He didn't have wealth, fame, or flashy talent on display. He blended into the crowd, an ordinary man in an ordinary world. But what no one realized was that behind his calm and quiet appearance, he carried a secret passion: music. Not the kind of music you hear blasting from speakers or playing on the radio. This music was something personal, something that came from deep within him. He had been practicing for years, sitting in his small room, learning to play an old instrument he had inherited from his father. Every note he played, every melody he tried to create was a piece of his heart. During the day, he worked like any other person. People saw him typing at a desk, serving customers, or walking home from work. They never imagined the melodies that danced in his mind or the countless hours he spent perfecting his craft. Music was not a hobby, it was a lifeline. It gave him a purpose, a reason to keep going even when life felt heavy. At first, he didn't even think about sharing his music with anyone. The fear of judgment was strong. What if people laughed? What if they thought he was foolish? In a world where everyone is busy chasing something big, it was easy to feel invisible. Still, he kept playing, alone in his room, letting the notes carry him to places words could not reach. His small apartment was filled with the sound of music every evening. He would sit on a worn-out chair, fingers gently pressing the keys of his instrument, and lose himself in the melodies. Sometimes he would close his eyes and imagine performing for a room full of people, their faces lit up with wonder. But reality was different. His audience was invisible. His applause came only from the echoes bouncing off the walls of his tiny room. Even in his ordinary life, small moments of inspiration kept him going. One morning, he found an old music sheet tucked away in a drawer. It was yellowed and fragile, but as he played the notes, he felt something he had never felt before. An excitement, a spark, a reminder that music had the power to change everything. He realized that talent could lie hidden, unnoticed even in someone who seemed completely ordinary. Despite his passion, life wasn't always kind. Bills piled up. Work was tiring. Some days he felt exhausted, as if he was moving through life in slow motion. But every evening when he returned to his music, he felt alive again. Music was the one place where he could escape, dream, and truly express himself. He learned that even if no one else noticed, the act of creating was enough to keep hope alive. His friends and family knew he loved music, but they never fully understood the depth of his skill. To them, it was just a hobby, something he did quietly in his free time. They encouraged him gently but didn't push him to pursue it publicly. And maybe he didn't want that either. He liked the idea of music being his secret world, a place where he could be himself without pressure or expectation. Yet, the ordinary life he led didn't stop him from dreaming. At night, he would lie awake imagining himself on a stage, performing for people who truly listened. He pictured the audience quiet, leaning forward, completely absorbed in the sound of his music. Even though it seemed far away, that dream gave him something to hold on to. It reminded him that there was more to life than what was visible on the surface. Over time, he began to notice small signs that maybe his music could touch others. Once a neighbor overheard him playing and complimented him softly. Another time, a coworker hummed along to a tune he had practiced. These small moments, though simple, gave him courage. They reminded him that even ordinary people can have extraordinary talents waiting to be discovered. He started thinking about the idea of sharing his music more openly. Maybe he could perform at a local event, or even just for a few friends. The thought made him nervous. What if he failed? What if people laughed or ignored him? But deep down, he knew that his music deserved to be heard. It was not just a skill. It was a piece of who he was. And sometimes the courage to take the first step is all it takes to start changing everything. Even on days when life felt heavy, he kept playing. Music became his companion, his friend, and his teacher. It taught him patience, resilience, and the value of small victories. Each note he played was a reminder that ordinary people can create extraordinary moments if they are willing to keep trying, even when the world doesn't notice. And so, he lived his life quietly, working his day job, paying his bills, and returning each evening to his music. The world may have seen him as just an ordinary man, but within him a remarkable talent was growing stronger every day. He didn't yet know when or how the world would notice, but he was ready. Ready to show that even ordinary people can create something that leaves everyone speechless. That ordinary man, hidden in plain sight, carried a gift that had the power to touch hearts, inspire dreams, and change lives. And although no one had yet seen it, the stage was waiting for him. One day, just one note would be enough to reveal the extraordinary within the ordinary. After years of playing in his small room, the ordinary man finally decided it was time to take a small step into the outside world. He had never imagined performing for strangers before. The thought made him nervous, almost paralyzing, but something inside him whispered that it was time. Maybe, just maybe, people would hear what he had been playing all these years and feel the same emotions he felt every evening. He chose a small community event nearby. It wasn't a huge stage and the audience would be modest, maybe just a few dozen people. But to him it felt like a giant leap. He spent days preparing, practicing the same songs over and over, making sure every note carried the right feeling. He didn't want to impress anyone with speed or technical skill. He wanted the music to speak from his heart. On the day of the performance, he felt a mix of excitement and terror. His hands shook slightly as he carried his instrument to the small platform. People were chatting, moving about, and he worried that no one would stop to listen. He wondered if his life's passion would go unnoticed like it had so many times before. When he began to play, the first few notes were tentative, almost hesitant. Some people glanced at him briefly, then looked away. A few even smiled politely, perhaps thinking, "Nice effort, but just another hobbyist." For a moment he felt the old fear creeping back, whispering that maybe he had made a mistake. But then something incredible happened. One person standing at the back of the crowd stopped walking. Another leaned in, tilting their head as if trying to catch every sound. Slowly the chatter faded, replaced by silence. His notes, gentle at first, began to flow with confidence. The music started to fill the space winding around the small room, wrapping itself around the hearts of everyone present. He played with everything he had, pouring years of practice, hope, and emotion into each melody. It was no longer just notes on an instrument, it was a story. A story of struggle, persistence, and the quiet determination of a man who had been overlooked for far too long. People began to pay attention, their faces softening, eyes widening, and even the most skeptical listeners leaning forward to catch every sound. By the end of his first song, a strange hush lingered in the air. Nobody moved, no one spoke. It was as if time had stopped, leaving only the music and its effect on the listeners. For a brief moment, the ordinary man felt like he was somewhere else entirely, carried away by the very sounds he had spent years perfecting. Then came the applause, slow at first, tentative but growing louder with each clap. Some people cheered, others wiped tears from their eyes, and a few whispered to one another, "Where has this man been all our lives?" He could hardly believe it. For the first time, someone other than himself truly heard what he had been expressing for years. After the performance, people approached him, praising his skill, asking questions, wanting to know more. Some said it was the most beautiful thing they had ever heard. Others were simply in awe, unable to find the right words. For the ordinary man, it was overwhelming. He had never expected this reaction. All he had hoped for was to share his music. But now he realized that even small steps could create extraordinary impact. The experience changed him in ways he hadn't anticipated. It wasn't just about recognition. It was the feeling that his passion, his effort, and his heart could touch others. That first small audience had shown him that ordinary people could achieve something remarkable, that years of quiet practice could finally shine when given a chance. Walking home that evening, he felt lighter, happier, and more alive than ever before. He knew this was only the beginning. There would be more performances, more nerves, and maybe even more doubt along the way. But he now had proof that his music mattered. That first small moment in front of strangers had planted a seed of confidence, and he vowed to nurture it, letting it grow into something that could reach even more people. Even in the ordinary world he returned to after the performance, everything felt different. His neighbors, co-workers, and friends noticed a quiet change in him, an air of purpose, a spark that hadn't been there before. He had discovered that sometimes being ordinary isn't a limitation. It can be the perfect place to start, to quietly build strength, skill, and courage before the world truly sees you. He kept practicing, refining his music, and preparing for the next chance to perform. Each evening as he played in his room, He now imagined the audience he had touched, imagining them listening, moved, and inspired. And while the world still hadn't fully recognized him, he no longer felt invisible. One day he knew his music would leave everyone speechless. That first performance had taught him a vital lesson. Talent is not enough on its own. Courage matters too. The courage to step out, to share what you love, and to trust that even ordinary people can create extraordinary moments. And so, with quiet determination and the music in his heart, the ordinary man prepared to take the next step on a journey that was only just beginning.